I think there's so much stigma and judgment. We definitely lived it in the parenting space, how your child sleeps, what techniques are you using, are you fully breastfeeding, are you using formula, do you use a dummy? There's so much judgment, and so I've tried to keep this really judgment-free. And, you know, there's no single right way. It all works, and every baby, every family is different, and that's okay.
Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. I'm Cameron Daddo.
And I'm Ali Daddo.
We would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay our respects to the elders both past and present. We've got a couple coming in today. Dr Preeya Alexander. She's the real deal.
And Dr Will Alexander.
Yeah, now...
Doctors in the house.
The doctors are in the house. We feel safe. Preeya is a GP.
Yeah.
If you go to book her for your next doctor's appointment, her about section reads like this. She completed a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery and obtained fellowship with the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners. Preeya has a special interest in women's health, children's health, preconception care and preventative medicine. She's also fluent in Hindi. That's what clicks on the computer.
That's great.
I did it, yeah. It's really cool.
Most of us might actually know her as the co-host of a popular cooking show, Good Chef, Bad Chef. Dr Preeya is also a featured expert on Sunrise. She's hosted 2 Catalyst episodes on ABC and continues to appear regularly on The Drum. She's also written a book, which is why she's in the bathroom with us, called Eat, Sleep, Pray, Love, a guide to your child's first 2 years.
As Al said, her husband is also a doctor. Will is a plastic surgeon. He's also the father of their 2 kids. That's all that I could dig up on Will, but have faith. This is a relationship podcast. Will is here with Preeya, and we're going to start a conversation and learn all sorts of things. Welcome, Dr. Preeya and Dr. Will Alexander into the bathroom. Welcome, Preeya and Will, to the bathroom. How are you both doing?
We're good. I'm good, Willie.
Yeah, good, thanks. Thanks for having us.
And you're welcome. And you've clearly come from the doctor's surgery. You're both in your scrubs, looking very comfy.
Very comfy. They're pyjamas, but I promise we don't rock around in this day-to-day. This is work attire.
You don't have scrubs with like little sparkles on them for nighttime or anything like that? Throw your heels on with them?
Willie?
I was going to say, Will probably does.
If anyone's got them, it's Willie.
Yeah, I've got a lot of scrubs.
Yeah, being a plastic surgeon, you kind of deal with maybe a little bit more glamour than that, or not so much?
Not so much. I steer clear of the cosmetic stuff.
Ah, okay. Oh, we're going to get into what you do, actually, Will.
We are a relationship podcast, so give us your love story. How did you guys meet?
Oh, who's telling the version, Willie?
Yours is probably saucy.
Yeah, there's 3 versions. There's 3 versions I've found out. There's the guy's version, there's the lady's version, and then there's the truth.
Somewhere in between.
I like that Preeya's got the saucy version. So.
Okay.
Yes, okay. So we were actually best mates at med school for years, and we were in a big friendship group, and Will was my kind of go-to for relationship stuff, for exam study, for what the heck is this in anatomy. And we were both single at, 4th year?
5th year.
5th year. And we were drunk at a pub. And it's the Havelock in Adelaide for anyone playing at home. And they had 2-for-1 vodkas. And we had a few too many and had a little drunken pash, which turned into a marriage with 2 kids.
Wow.
And that's the saucy version.
Do you agree with that version,
more.
Will?
Yeah, that's about right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So how long did it take once you had the little drunken kiss before you went, okay, let's cement the deal with a ring and get engaged?
3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Pretty quick.
We knew each other, though. I
Mate,
remember
that's
2
not
weeks.
quick. We did 3 weeks. That was quick.
Oh, did you?
No, it wasn't 3 weeks.
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months.
Oh, I love that you think 3 years is quick. But I remember we were together one day, and I said to Will 2 weeks in, we'd been really close mates, and I said, Willie, where's this going? Like, what are we doing? And Will was like, what did you say? Honestly.
I said, we'll probably get married, I reckon.
2 weeks. And I was like, yeah, it feels right. We knew each other pretty well.
So
That's so nice.
How old were you? You said you're pretty young, Willie.
22, 23 when we got together.
Yeah, that's young.
Yeah,
was
but
pretty
you're
young.
young in your life as well because you're both
Yeah.
at the beginning of big medical studies,
Yes,
right?
still at uni.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No
What
real
was
world
the
experience.
what was the attraction?
Well, it wasn't. It obviously wasn't physical first because we kind of knew each other as buddies for so long, and there, at least on my end, there was no kind of pining. But then once we hooked up, it was pretty clear.
And I think the attraction was I'd seen Will through all sorts of things with previous partners, and he was loyal. He was, your integrity was very strong, and I knew you were a solid, decent human. And once we kind of crossed that line from friends to something else, I knew who you were already. And, you know, through all sorts of trials and tribulations, you've stayed true to that, I reckon.
Does it
Without
still
starting
feel?
to cry.
Aw. Does it still feel like you're best friends still, as well as partners?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so lovely. Because I mean, they always talk about that, don't they? That it's if your partner is one of your closest friends or your best friend, that gives great longevity to a marriage.
Yeah, and I think laughing together. I love it.
Looking
Long
at me.
stare.
Spoken after 33 years of marriage or 32 years of marriage.
But I think
can
it's
agree.
nice to say, you know, I know Willie in and out. I know how he's probably going to react to certain things. I know we can laugh together. He still makes me laugh out loud with some of your epic text messages. You know, like it's got to be fun, and you've got to be friends first, I think, to survive the chaos of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were
Yeah.
text messages always part of the romance and the communication?
They were expensive early on.
What were they, 40 cents a text?
25 cents or something.
25. Yeah, they were. But, I mean, we used to see each other in lectures every day.
Yeah, right.
Or in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like the what's it called in Adelaide? I've forgotten.
Women's and kids.
Yeah, women's and kids. We used to, you know.
Did you pass
Our
notes?
friendship group
Pass
was like,
notes to
yeah,
each
we
other?
did. There were a few notes and a bit of winking across the lecture, the seats. But, you know, I used to see him in the hospital, and suddenly it was not just Will that I was seeing. It was like, oh no, there's something here now. I need to look a bit better when I go to hospital now. But yeah, it was exciting times back then.
Speaking of, you know, the chaos of life and having your best friend beside you, you've got 2 kids. You've had 2 very different birth experiences. Can you just go share a little bit more about both of those?
So our daughter was born 7 years ago now, and she was born via emergency C-section, and I think it's fair to say that was not the birth we had both expected. You know, we're both doctors. We've seen the worst of the worst, but I think we'd assumed that I'd be a low-risk pregnancy. I was quite healthy, and it went completely pear-shaped. And I think we were both hit for 6 with her birth.
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah.
And I think we both took a while to recover from that and bond with our daughter. I think you definitely bonded quicker than what I did, but I was really physically and emotionally hit for 6 after that birth.
Yeah.
And then our son, who was nearly 4 years later, was meant to be an elective Caesar, but I went into labour, and that was a semi-elective Caesar where I had a different team. I was empowered. Will wasn't allowed to leave the room, and that was clearly set out in the operating theatre from, you know, the first minute that no one was going to separate the family, because that had happened in the first birth. And that was quite a healing birth for me. And I bonded completely differently with our son.
Yeah.
And the whole experience was just better. Do you reckon?
I think the first time around we did the usual doctor thing of you were particularly low risk, and we signed up with the high risk pregnancy doc of Melbourne to kind of cover our bases, but none of us really believed anything could actually go wrong, and then it went quite wrong.
Yeah.
And where were you, Will, when Preeya was getting the emergency C-section? You weren't allowed to be in there, were you? Were you
No,
just,
and I was. Yeah,
Oh,
I was.
you were in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were short staffed. I work in the hospital. I knew how it worked, and we were the 3rd emergency to happen, so they had to call in extra anaesthetists and staff to get it started. So I actually ended up helping
No way.
transfer Preeya onto the table and gets the drapes a little bit ready and get the betadine prep ready and all this stuff. Like, it was a bit too close to home.
Were you able to kind of separate your emotions in that moment and go into work mode, or how was that? That must have been terrifying.
It was because I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't that concerned about the baby. We hadn't had a kid. I didn't have that kind of emotional, I can see it, I can care for it kind of connection yet, and I was worried about Preeya dropping, to be honest. And then very soon after the birth, I got whisked out with the baby, and I could tell Preeya wasn't still stable. So it was, sitting in a room by herself for an hour or two waiting. Or not by herself, with a baby who, came with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, of course.
So that's the separation you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Will, I remember being kind of seeing my blood pressure shaking, feeling very anxious, going that blood pressure could be a stroke. They'd pushed the epidural so quickly that I'd kind of numbed to the nipples. So I thought, actually a bit higher. So I thought I was having a stroke, or I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And I could hear this argument to my left with Will going, I'm not leaving, like I'm not going, you take the baby, and kind of saying I'm not leaving the room. And they said, you have to leave the room. And so someone had to be with the baby, and that was Will. And I just remember lying in recovery saying, not even the baby, same as me, I just said, I just want Will.
Yeah.
If you can't get Will, I want my mum. I just want one of those two humans to be here with me, because I was just completely... Yeah. He's wondering if I'm alive, and I wondered, where's the baby, and is Will with her? Yeah.
Oh, those moments must have been awful. Was it that you were hemorrhaging? Is that what was going on that started to happen, or...?
Just blood pressure dropping.
Oh, okay.
Like too high, then too low.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's the thing about you. You can make plans, can't you, for childbirth, and the babies have their own way of arriving. We've got 3 kids, and they all came very differently. And the last one we had was a bit more like what you're describing for your first one. Not quite as serious. I didn't have to disappear with the baby, but
we nearly lost the baby.
We nearly lost the baby because we were going to do it at home. We'd had it all planned at home.
The middle one was a great home birth, incredibly easy.
Yeah.
So we thought third one, no worries. But other plans were afoot.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I say to patients often, you almost need to have a bit of an idea, but not a firm plan, because if it doesn't go to this rigid fixed thing that you've got, you can start to feel like a failure when in fact you're not. It's just the process.
Yeah. I think I've got a pretty surgeon's mentality about it. I think they're kind of surgically treatable conditions and should just get them out as quick as possible.
Yeah.
I get worried about it.
He is a surgeon though.
Yep.
And is that part of your work, Will, that you have a healthy detachment from your patients? Does that help you make the decisions that you do in a moment?
That's probably a fair way to put it. I do mainly, a lot of my work is paediatric, so a lot of young kids, particularly sub 2-year-old kids, are my patients.
Right.
So it's easier to care than it is for an adult, I think, because adults, you kind of assume they can fend for themselves, and kids, you do feel that kind of need to do something good for them, if that's fair to say. But there is a bit of detachment, and you do, and we are so heavily trained in Australia through our training programs that you just see sheer number and volume of patients that you do, unfortunately or fortunately, become a bit detached to it all.
How do you guys manage the work-life balance? Because you're both obviously professionals, sitting here in your pajamas, rocking up to a very serious interview with us in a bathroom. How do you manage that?
I think we do it better at times and worse at others. It's a serious juggle, and we have meetings where we sit down with the diary. It's colour-coded. Will's got his stuff. I've got mine. It's very, very organised.
Yep.
And
right.
I think we're lucky in that when I need to step up in terms of media commitments or whatever I'm doing, or clinic, Will can drop back a bit. And when he's got lots on, I can take the slack. We've got my mum, who's the most amazing family support. We'd be, I think, really struggling without her. And we've got a nanny 1 day a week, but we kind of patch it all together. We're the predominant caregivers. We're very lucky that we've got, I think, we can choose our schedule. Like, you're picking the kids up today, I do it on other day. Like, we've just somehow struck maybe just the right balance. Maybe. Hard to know.
It's a lot of organisation on your part. I just follow the plan.
Follow the schedule.
Follow the boss.
Tell me where to go and I'll do it.
Yeah,
Follow the colour coding, baby.
I'm reliable once I know what the job is.
There you go. Preeya, you've become an absolute Instagram superstar. You've got over 70,000 followers and you give out great parental advice. And how did that come about?
So that started in 2016, quite a while ago now, but I decided to kind of get in that space to combat a lot of the health misinformation that I was seeing.
Yeah.
And so I was seeing a lot of stuff about, treating cancer with avocados, a lot of vaccine misinformation, which was really problematic, a lot of misinformation on skin cancer, sunscreen. And so I said to Will, I like public speaking. I felt like my inner Beyonce had died when I chose medicine, my kind of public speaking and debating. And so I thought, let's have a dabble. And honestly, Ali, I posted to no one for a good probably 3 to 4 years. Yeah. It was only Will liking my posts.
Yeah. It was also, you're on mat leave as well.
Yeah, correct.
You had a bit of time.
Yeah. Well, did I, is the question. I was efficient. That's a debate for another day. But and then it slowly started to turn into something. And I started a blog, and then I started to, radio and TV, and it's grown into something phenomenal and led to the book. But
yeah,
it's been a long, slow burn. Not the sexy kind.
Yeah, you haven't been the overnight success, but I think that's probably the best way to do it. Yeah, a lot of work, exactly.
Yeah. That's what they see. That's the Hollywood one. That's 10 years to becoming an overnight sensation. There's a lot of people. I'm still waiting for I'm up to 30 years to becoming an overnight
sensation. Any minute now, honey. It's coming your way.
You're on the brink.
Just waiting for Salt and Pepper Guy to take off.
The Silver Fox time is coming.
Yeah,
sure.
You mentioned your book. Let's back to you guys. Eat, Sleep, Play, Love. I love the dedication in the front cover. Can I read it? It's to all the parents who have been in the trenches, the ones I've seen in the waiting room over the years, and the ones still to come. What inspired the book? I have an idea, but what inspired it? Why did you write it? You're a busy woman.
So this is the book. I've written the book that I wish I'd had as a new mum, that we'd had as parents, and this is the book I wish I could give to my patients in the consulting room. So this is filled with all the practical medical golden nuggets for the first 2 years, and I think it's a confusing time. It's an overwhelming time, and so I wanted to really demystify the period for people and go, here's the platter of options. There's no single right answer. Choose what works for you and your family when it comes to sleep, milk feeding, skincare, starting solids, whatever. I involved a range of experts because I think that's really important. So I've got paediatrician, dietitian, pelvic floor physio, dentist, all of them. But this is the book that, I want to give to my, the patients I've known for years. And they go, Preeya, I wish I'd known that sooner. Can I have my Preeya, golden nugget now about this? And, couldn't it all be in one place? And I'm like, well, yes, it can. Eat, sleep, play, love. There it is.
So shut up, stop asking me questions. Read the damn book.
Yeah. Read the book, baby.
$34.99 from Angus and Robinson. Off you go. Here it is.
Bring it in and I'll sign it for you. Now
well,
get
they
out.
have been. Cameron, they've been bringing into the clinic to be signed.
Oh, that's so great.
So the consults have shifted slightly. I'm like, and what are we doing today? And they're like, well, first. And the book comes out. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about the chest pain.
It's probably dog-eared already. Yeah. I know, because as parents, we're so desperate for information. Like, it doesn't, for me, I remember I just couldn't get enough information. And if you've got something that's all in one place that, that just sounds like it becomes a bit of a Bible, doesn't it? Where it's like, my child's having this. Oh my God, she's written about it. Fantastic. So you can go straight to your book and find all the info in one place, which one voice is often just, it just gives it's more calming that way, I find, than a million voices yelling at you.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to say a calming but non-judgmental voice. I think there's so much stigma and judgment. We definitely lived it in the parenting space, how your child sleeps, what techniques are you using, are you fully breastfeeding, are you using formula, do you use a dummy? There's so much judgment, and so I've tried to keep this really judgment-free. And, there's no single right way. It all works, and every baby, every family is different, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about that on the way over, that was one of the things as you parent, that there's nothing definitive about what is the right way to do parenting other than love your child and be kind to them.
Yeah.
Everything around that is sort of like...
It's up for grabs.
It's up for grabs.
Because the kids are different too, aren't they?
Yeah, they're different.
They're also different.
We parented differently in all three of ours in a lot of ways. Had the same foundation, but there was things we did different with our youngest that we did to our eldest, That was, you just do what you can. Will did Preeya sort of talk to you a lot about the book? Was she sort of up and 10 o'clock at night going, well, should I put this in the book or?
At the start and at the very end, yes. And in the middle, it was head down, bum up, kind of just writing it. And there'd be, if you look at it, the chapters are kind of 30 pages long, and you should do 3 or 4 chapters in a single night. Because it's all information that's front of house for you, so it's pretty easy to write, I think. Looking at it, like it came off easily, but then you had
watching the process. That's
you
good.
had to fact check kind of and have references afterwards.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting, isn't it, how we went from having a single source of information like your parents to tell you how to do it, and then internet and social media, people crave more and more and more, and now there's this phase of everyone wants to withdraw all that extra noise and go back to one or two solid voices again.
It's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah, as you say, there's a lot of, don't take your advice off TikTok, basically.
Yes. And it's become a very noisy space. And I guess you've got unqualified people with a platform. And I see patients going, but Preeya, they've said that to do this, and they've said that, if I let the baby cry, I'm going to destroy my relationship. And you're hearing all these opinions. So, what I did try and do, and you heard a lot about, is I said to Will, I've actually read through every single guideline on this, and this is the consensus. And it was really interesting for us as parents because we kind of went, oh, well, that's what we did. That's really nice once you've read every guideline to go, oh, well, we didn't totally, stuff it all up. So the journey was it caused a lot of reflection for us, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything about parenting from writing the book?
I did. I learned, I think it cemented for me that there is no single right way. And I say that as a very kind of neurotic type A personality. I've lived generalised anxiety disorder nearly 20 years ago, panic attacks, sleepless nights. I'm a perfectionist. I normally try hard at something and succeed. And you can't do that with parenting. And so as I wrote the book, it really taught me again so beautifully that there's just no single right way, and there's no medal, there's no perfect, there's no, you're nailing it and you're not. It was just quite liberating to write. I found it quite healing, to be honest.
I learned heaps.
Did Will's reading it now in bed next to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I had no idea about half of it, yeah.
That's so great.
I'm so far gone from this stuff. Yeah, it was really useful.
Do you take a lot from how you were raised, Will, from your parents, or are you taking more from how you're raising your kids now and reimagining parenting?
I think you take the best of everything, and you try and omit the worst of things as well, and find a balance somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
I think I learnt how to parent from our daughter, who was particularly easy to parent. I thought, and it may not always be the case, but then that was a good warm-up for our son, who's been a bit harder. And I kind of watch how you do it, Preeya. I watch how in-laws do it, and kind of pick and choose some tactics.
Harder? How has it been harder with your son?
He's not like either of us. Our daughter really wants to please. She's perfectionist. She likes being patted on the back. you know what the whip is, you know what the carrot is. With our son, I don't know what either of those things. We didn't. I think the last 2 weeks has been really good.
Actually, the last 2 weeks we were saying before the podcast, we were like, we're getting a measure of him now, but he's a different kid.
Yeah, you can't reward him with anything that he really loves, and you couldn't really tell him off, and he didn't really care. He's his own little guy.
Yeah.
But now he's kind of falling into the family.
Well, we're falling into him, I think,
maybe.
actually.
Yeah,
I think we've all kind of let go a bit, and he's a beautiful kid, but gosh, he just doesn't...
He's so laid back.
How old is he?
3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He's laid back, which doesn't, go well with us.
Yeah.
So our son was quite different to our 2 daughters. He's our middle one. And all the expectations or thoughts that I had as he grew up around raising a boy and what it was going to be like and the things that I was envisaging he and I doing together, he just had his own version of how he wanted to do life, and it called for me to stop imposing my will, pardon the play on words, it wasn't even that, but my will on him, and go the way that where he was directing or wanted things to go. So I found that quite challenging for a while, and he does it his own way.
And I think we've slowly let our son do it his own way. And my mum has said to us so many times, he's a different kid. Like you two, he's a different kid. And now I feel like we get him. And yes, the carrot and the stick thing is not so easy with him, but we definitely know what floats his boat and how to kind of navigate this 3-year-old who's obsessed with Lego, and also what's the letter that starts that word. We've found his kind of weird little intricacies and we've played into them. Yeah,
but I know what you mean. It's not playing catch in the front yard like you kind of picture in the movies.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, I actually stood there with a ball in front of Riv at one point, and it was just this big bouncy soft ball, and I'm bouncing it on the ground, I'm throwing it in the air, I'm catching it to myself, like, okay, now your turn. I lob it at him, hit him in the chest, and it dropped on the ground. He's just like, what the hell did you do that for? But he didn't do it with any words. It was just this look that I was like, oh my God, he's just not into that. No. It's like, move on. You can I ask you this? You mentioned early in the book that even though you were both doctors, when you decided to try for a baby, neither of you had, as you put, no idea of what that meant. Can you elaborate a bit more about that?
Well, I was a GP trainee at the time, and I was seeing people preconception, doing preconception care. I was helping pregnant people with young kids, but it wasn't until we actively thought, okay, we're ready to start a family, that the kind of anxiety kicked in. It was like, why aren't we immediately pregnant? What happens if this goes wrong? What do we do with it? I don't think either of us had quite appreciated how emotionally taxing and uncertain the journey would be. And I'd seen patients live it, and I'd gone, oh, but you just kind of rock on to the 13-week scan. When you're living it, you're like, I just want Tuesday to end. I hadn't anticipated quite the process.
Gotcha. And what about, how was it there for you, Will, in the lead up?
Yeah, much the same. I wasn't in I think in retrospect, I wasn't in a rush like Preeya perhaps was. And the kind of waiting didn't bother me too much. It was when we started having, we had a miscarriage first up, and that was pretty confronting though. And I hadn't really ever read or experienced much of that with my patients before, so that was a new thing.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, we had 2 miscarriages, one before our daughter and one before our son.
Yeah.
And I think the second was probably more traumatic in some ways because, we'd had a scan and it was fine. Then we had a second scan and the heartbeat was gone and Will was scrubbed and I couldn't get onto him and I was bawling my eyes out, and they told you on speakerphone in a theatre, the baby's not alive, dead. And, my mum was in court. She's a lawyer, she's a QC. And so it was just this traumatic 24 hours, really, and much longer than that, really. But I think when you live things like that, I think certainly as a GP, you can't live every experience that your patient goes through. But gosh, when patients live it, and I say to the people bawling in the chair, I have been there.
Yeah.
you can have a normal pregnancy after. You know, I have sat where you sat. It feels like the world is ending. It's, you know, I think comforting for patients, but also gives me a huge amount of sympathy now, not just empathy, but I've walked in those shoes.
Absolutely. And if you can take any, you know, silver lining from an experience that I know how hard that is, and so sorry to hear that, yeah, exactly. You can say to your patients, I get it. I know the pain you're going through. And just that alone for a patient to hear that can be, you know, 50% of the healing process, you know, that your doctor gets you, your doctor understands, because it does feel like the world's coming to an end.
Yeah.
Even outside the consulting room, you know, with mates at the pub mentioning it, you realise that most of the people around the table have had the same thing happen, but have never brought it up before. So it's a strange thing.
Yeah, that's right. I love that you actually write on the cover of your book that it's a non-judgmental book, and I that wording really caught my attention, because as you were saying, you know, there is so much judgment around parenting and who does what and how and where and who's co-sleeping and who's not co-sleeping. You know, how much does that affect mental health, particularly for the mums? Do you find that that becomes a mental health issue as well for the mums out there when they feel that they're being judged and they don't know which way to go?
Yes, like I think it adds to stress for new parents, and we know that can be linked absolutely to mood disorders, so it can be a factor. But I think I see a lot of what judgment does to people in my consulting room, particularly around things like sleep and milk feeding. Milk feeding is a big one, you know, the breast formula, you know, people feel really judged, and I've got these people in my consulting room who are already sleep deprived, vulnerable, going, what have I done? Am I built for this? Am I good enough? Yeah. Who then feel so judged and shamed because they cannot breastfeed, and it's just not feasible for every single person. Yep. And people will throw the kitchen sink like we did with our daughter. You know, I remember you walking into the room one day, do you remember? Upstairs, and I had the room all dark. I had her in the football hold. I was standing up. I was rocking. Do you remember?
Yeah, you had like the curtains half drawn.
And Will walked in, and I was nearly dropping her, and Will said, babe, what's going on? Like, whoa, you've nearly dropped her. Like, and we talked, and I was bawling, and I said, I'm not good enough. Like, I felt so judged and inferior because of these comments that are in the community, and, you know, and so to answer the question, that's a very long answer, but yeah, I think it is a big factor. So what I wanted to do with the book is say, hey, here's the evidence, the pros and the cons. Choose what works for you, but no judgment or stigma in those pages, because I see plenty of it and the damage it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's you as a, you know, you had that as a tertiary educated, you know, like in medicine, usually pretty confident woman. Like it's... Yeah. You can imagine how much that would chip away at you if you didn't have that education base, or you didn't have that confidence as a personality trait as well.
Yeah, single mum out there trying to juggle it all on her own or whatever. I mean,
correct.
Yeah, that's tough.
And I imagine in your situation, you're a medically trained person. You're a doctor, and if you feel like you're not good enough, I mean that must have weighed heavily upon you.
It did, and that's where my journey with my daughter, I think, was quite heavy after the birth and the birth trauma. I think, you know, all of that and not feeling good enough, and I hadn't had the birth I'd envisioned, and I was struggling, and I had a massive C-section wound and was having problems bonding. You know, I felt like a massive failure because I was meant to be good at it. I was meant to know the stuff, but it's very different when you're living it. But I do think sharing that in the book, like I've had people say to me, Preeya, I feel seen. Because if you're willing to talk about it and tell the truth and the raw parts, then, you know, it's okay for me too. So I think sometimes the health profession, we're not great, and I'm very different like that. I'm very open, maybe an oversharer at times, Willie.
Absolutely.
But I think it's powerful for people to go, well, these two had no idea and, you know, struggled through. It's completely normal.
How do you counsel someone who sits in front of you and says, I'm not good enough?
That's a common conversation I have in the consulting room, and I'll probably have it again when I go in today. But, my job as the GP is to nut out what is telling you that. Have you got thoughts in your head? Where are they stemming from? Is there a mood disorder like depression, anxiety? What's the basis of this? Do we need a psychologist? Do we need to work on confidence at work? But it's Cameron, I have lots of those conversations as a GP.
Not just about parenting.
Not just about parenting, no.
Yeah. Do you find that yourself, Will, with some of your mates, that as a dad they feel like they're failing their kids or failing the dad brief?
I don't. It's guys are different in a way. I don't have that many. You count on one hand the mates who would actually tell you that if they were going through it. But in that group, I think there's a lot of doubt and not just doubt about how they're parenting or how they're doing, but also how they're managing their life around being a dad. You feel, and I was the same for a few years after our daughter was born. You feel socially constricted by the new way of life, and I used to feel quite guilty about that, but also quite jealous of my child-free friends who are going out doing certain things. And I think that's a pretty common conversation as well, wondering if that's selfish or if that's normal. I think it's a bit of both.
Did anything help you at the time?
Time,
right, yeah.
I think it takes a while to kind of just grow up and realise, that kind of phase of my life's over, and now it's a bit more serious, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And you kind of find your fun at 6 p.m. playing, with your kids, not...
Or Get Low, that's a good game too.
Or not at 2 a.m.
Yeah, right. Drinking with your mates, yeah.
But it makes you certainly enjoy those times when you're with your mates tenfold more when they're rare.
What do you think, this is a question for both of you, what's the biggest challenge, that parents are facing today in raising kids?
Oh, the biggest, that's tricky.
Okay, top 3. We take out a broad brush.
Where do you I've got my, you go.
I'll go one of them. I reckon breaking the tradition of generational, misogyny and racism, and the kind of the traditional way of thinking that if your parents vote Labor, you vote Labor. If they vote Liberal, you go Liberal. If they're racist, you'll be inherently racist as well. I think we think that we're good at that. But if you look at that next age group down, the kind of 16, 17, 18-year-olds at the moment, they're a phenomenal age group of people who are really breaking that that generational bias. That I think that's the biggest challenge for our age group and the next generation to come in raising kids.
And we're quite passionate about that because we're obviously a mixed race couple, which, that adds a dimension to our relationship, I guess, and our journey.
Yeah.
But we're very, I think there are a lot of parents currently going, how do I raise decent, inclusive, anti-racist children?
Yep.
How do you do that? And we actively do that with all sorts of things like books and the shows we watch and the discussions we have in an age-appropriate way. I think the other one is, I was going to say, if there's 3, also combating diet culture for both boys and girls. I think we're in a, I'm seeing a lot of parents now going, I actually have a problematic relationship with food and my body because of the generation that I grew up in, good food, bad food, exercising to change the body. And that's something I talk about often on social media because it is so problematic, and it's really easy to pass those things on to kids, and it's hard to break them. But I think that's, one of the biggest things facing our generation of parents, of going, okay, we might have lived that, but we don't use healthy, unhealthy, good, bad food in our home. We don't have scales. We don't talk about weight loss or diets. All food is food. It's an active effort to really prevent our kids from going down similar paths.
Yeah.
They're big things.
Yeah, they are big things.
Yeah, you're busy parents, you're working, you're doing great work in the media, and you've got your book and all. But how do you two connect? What do you do? Do you play golf together? Do you ballroom dance?
That's his dream. We do not play golf. I walk the course with you. What do we do, Willie? We, at night...
We get the kids to bed early. which I think is a point of difference. Like we get them both at least in their rooms by 7 o'clock, and that gives you at least a couple of hours uninterrupted.
We talk. We try not to turn the TV on all the time. We
walk if we have help coming, like a grandparent, or if the nanny's there on that one day of the week, then we'll take 30 minutes to go for a walk rather than go and get a drink or something instead.
Yeah, we walk and talk a lot. But I think we, my mum has been a really good advisor for that, which is you two need to take time out for you two, because if you two are okay, then everything tends to run more smoothly.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky that she's a sound human with excellent advice who also facilitates that. So it's not uncommon for mum to say, look, I'm going to take the kids, go and do something nice, just the two of you. And that can be different. Sometimes we go for a hike, sometimes we go and have a nice meal, but we talk. I think that's how we keep it. We laugh and we talk. We do laugh. And we wrestle sometimes. We have a family wrestle occasionally. It's just Will and I having a true blue...
Proper wrestle.
Yeah, just a bit of a wrestle. Get the energy out.
A little bit of a headlock every now and again. Brings you closer.
It's actually fun.
Oh, it's a great idea.
No,
see, Al's
he would hurt me.
No, I wouldn't.
He's 6 foot. Not meaning to, but every time I try that, you just get me by one finger, and I'm like, ow! I don't have the strength.
It's very funny.
I bought us Nerf guns at Christmas, and we have sometimes a bit of a kind of Nerf gun fight once the kids are in bed,
Yes.
running
That's
around the house.
awesome.
Yes.
I could do that. I could do
That's
that.
good fun.
Actually, our son saw it and said, "What is this, Mummy?" And I said, "Oh, that is not yours, because they're not allowed those the little guns." And
Embarrassing
so,
when you get caught.
What's the best thing about being a parent?
hopefully I don't cry, but when I try and explain this, I do get a bit emotional. But I think the best thing is the spontaneous moments of love that your children display, that are just totally unscripted and burst from somewhere where you just realise, oh my goodness, this is so special and I'm really important in this person's universe. I'm an integral component of it. But for me, it's when the kids come out to reach my hand. Like, it's such a small gesture, but if either our daughter or our son just lifts to look for your hand, I think, shivers, I'm there. Or they put their hands, their sticky hands on your face and go, I love your mummy. That's our son. And, you know, that's...
And get that eye contact.
Makes me want to cry. You know, it's, I think parenthood is, you know, I talk in the book about a lot of the challenges, but I do talk about the fact that there is nothing quite like seeing these people grow and learn and discover and push boundaries and fail and pick themselves up again. It's an incredible privilege. Very exhausting, but yeah, an incredible privilege.
Will, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm similar vein. I don't want to copy the thing, but I think that the generosity of spirit that they show. I was last weekend or 2 weekends ago. I was up all night operating. Came home and I was a bit distracted and still worrying about something. And my daughter just rattled off about 10 jokes. And after a while, I said, "Where are these jokes coming from?" She goes, "Oh, I just knew you were a bit down. I'm just trying to cheer you up." And I thought, just to...
And wrote you a card saying,
Yeah,
Daddy,
wrote me
I
a
know you've
card.
not been around, but I love you and we know you're doing good stuff. And we were both bawling in bed. She'd left it under your pillow.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty good, 7-year-old. You know,
That's
you
the
kinda
best.
get this emotionally intelligent
That's
kids
right.
who are teaching you a lesson. You know, writing a letter when you think to write a letter.
That's beautiful.
It's a good lesson.
Do you have one, Al? Do you have a thought about that? The best thing about being a parent? Now that you're a parent of adults.
Oh my gosh. Do you know, I mean, you know me. It's basically I say everything is the best thing about parenting. I've wanted it for so long to be a parent, and then it was everything and more. But yeah, I think it is in those, when you were saying that, Preeya, I totally get that. Those little moments where they come and just sit next to you, or they come and just sit on your lap, or they put their arms up and you're the person that they want to console them. You're the person they want to show you what they made first, you know, their excitement, their joy, their pain, everything, that you're their person that they want to show that to you and share that with. And Yeah, it is. It is a real privilege, but I just love it all. I love every bit of it.
We do a 2-minute shower, you two, where we keep our answers very, very short.
Should we take our pyjamas off or leave them on?
No, you can leave your jammies on.
You are saucy, Preeya.
If I said yes, I'd probably get in trouble on this side of the microphone.
Dim the lights.
I know that, yeah, dim
That's
the
right.
lights.
Well, the curtains.
What was it? Yeah, dim the lights. What was that, Kieran? American Idol. Okay, no, we're not doing that. Here we go. What? I'm not Ryan Seacrest. What is your best quality? Your best quality?
Anyone first or me?
Yep, either one.
Loyalty.
That's definitely yours. I think efficiency. Will's nodding, yeah.
Efficient answer.
What the world needs more of is...
Inclusivity for absolutely everybody.
Yeah, tolerance.
Tolerance, yeah.
What does your perfect day look like?
Oh, mine is with going for a walk with a family, having a whole, like we had on Mother's Day, kind of 3 hours in the garden, in the veggie patch, with Will mowing and the kids on the trampoline and planting silver beet, and then a good gin and tonic followed by some champagne with Willie.
Oh, nice.
And a nice couple coming over too, and a good platter.
Yeah, like action in the morning, like sport with the kids or something, and then a long boozy lunch with lots of families.
And Carlton winning a football game.
Yes, Ali. How did you know
I just
that?
saw Will's face go, wait, how did she know I was a Carlton
Yeah.
supporter?
I heard you mispronounce Carlton as Crows as Carlton, though.
He's a Crow supporter. I'm Carlton.
Oh, you're Carlton! Oh, I got that wrong.
Priya, I'm sorry. And Willie, I reckon next year they're going to win the flag. What
Yeah,
an
I think
awesome
so.
side. Young.
Yeah.
Well, we're both Essendon supporters, so that's where we join up on that one at least. It's one of our fun things we do. We watch Essendon.
We
lose.
high-five each other when Tippy gets a goal. And Draper
It would
busts
be
him
nice
open
to go
from
for the
centre.
same footy team. It would be a nice thing, but alas,
Yeah.
here we are.
Last
Talk
question.
about it all day, you know that.
One word to describe each other.
Loyal is my word for Willie.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
a bit boring.
No, but it is. That's my greatest love of you. Your loyalty, your undying putting us first, no matter what.
Caring.
Great.
Beautiful. Priya and
gonna
Will,
hug
thank
it
you
out.
so much. The book is Eat, Sleep, Play, Love. And it's out now. So thank you so much. And just on behalf of our audience who are parents and or parents to be, thank you, because it's so full of wonderful information.
And
Well done.
Great gift.
Great gift.
Great gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Thanks so much for your time, you two. We're going to let you go back to your really important stuff, which is taking care of people in surgery.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
There they go, Priya and Will Alexander. I love that chat.
Yeah,
It's really kind of calming, peaceful, and full of info.
absolutely. She'd be a great GP to have, wouldn't she? Because you can really feel the empathy,
Yeah.
which is what I'm always looking for in a health practitioner.
Well, you don't want people talking at you
No.
either in that sense. And Will is a plastic surgeon, and he said it's not about doing nose jobs and cheekbones.
Yeah.
It's more with kids and
Pediatrics.
Pediatrics. So
He would have seen some hard stuff, I'm sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so just having them both be so present and kind with their info, and also it just reminded me as they were talking, soft words sink in, and so I loved that. It was great.
Yep. And as we said, Eat, Sleep, Pray, Love is out now. She's a GP, Priya, and a mother of two and a TV presenter. You can also find her on Instagram. And yeah, it's a great book full of great info.
We'll see you next time on Separate Bathrooms.
Thanks for listening.